What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Jay Rich, back to bring you your MLB props for Sunday, June the 12th. Now, yesterday, I wasn't here. I had some issue with the models, so I had to fix some things up, get it back right, but we are back today. You see I have the Red Sox jersey on. Maybe bring some luck after the heartbreaking loss yesterday to the Seattle Mariners. And there is a pitcher on the mound who isn't so great from the left-handed side, so maybe, just maybe, the Red Sox can get a win today. But let's dive into the model right now. Let's not waste any more time, and let's talk some of these hitter fantasy score plays on PrizePicks. Make sure you use promo code WAKEUP for a 100% deposit match up to $100, and drop this video a like if you like this content and you like what I provide to you almost every day. But let's get into it right now. So let's start with the big list that we have so far. Jake Cronenworth, Adolis Garcia, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, Carlos Correa, and Aaron Judge for the overs, and then Jonathan Scope, Chad Pinder, Miguel Cabrera, and Austin Meadows for unders. And so this is an interesting list. You know, you look at what we see right now. Cronenworth at the top was surprising. You know, the Padres aren't playing their best, but they're playing a little bit better, and a lot of the reason why is because of Jake Cronenworth. Now, one of the issues I see right away when I'm looking at this, last 14 days, he's only getting about a hit per game, and that's not great, you know. He is obviously heating up in a big way, 10 points over his last 14 days and 14 points over his last 7 days, which I do love to see, and up against Herman Marquez. Is he going to have a good game? Is he going to have a bad game? He's been terrible pretty much all season long. But last start against the Giants, he played pretty well. Now, he's got to go into San Diego today, smaller ballpark, more chances for home runs. Cronenworth has been crazy hot. His line's only 6.5. So if you believe in Jake Cronenworth, I think there's a good shot he goes over. You know, the pitch value factor, the park factor is okay, but again, Marquez has been so bad. Was last week's start against the Giants just a blimp on the radar, and he had one good start, or is it a potential trend for him finally starting to get things back together? I'm okay with it. If you want to play Cronenworth, I do like it. He's been super hot, like I mentioned. He's scoring. He's almost getting an RBI every single game, which is great to see. You know, there's a lot of points there. 2 total bases per game. Could be a little bit more productive overall, and you'll see some of the guys later when I talk about them as to why. Adolis Garcia is someone that I was really surprised to see in this list, but again, his line is only 4.5. I have him projected for over 8 points. He's getting 2 total bases per game, you know, half a run per game, almost an RBI per game, half an extra base hit per game. I mean, there's worse bets. As good as Michael Kopech is, and you can see by his pitch factor, he's been really good, almost a 0.6, actually lower than that. So that's why I don't love the play, right? But again, for a guy who bats somewhere in the middle of the order, probably going to see 4 at bats. Kopech is good, and he hasn't seen him, so that's a bit of an issue for me. But with this low total at 4.5, running an RBI, a walk, and a hit, like, it's not terrible, you know. So I don't hate it overall. And the White Sox, I think they allowed 11 runs to the Rangers yesterday. Garcia, he's been hitting a lot of home runs. He's been doing pretty well, so I don't hate it if you want to go after him. You know, I was looking at Seager, looking at Semien. They're borderline plays, but again, also projected to overs because these totals are just pushed so far down because of Kopech. I get it, but if you want to run the risk with Adolis Garcia, he's been pretty damn good. 11 over his last 14, 7. I kind of like it overall. But the 2 guys I really like today, Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper. I mean, I don't have to say a lot with these guys. 13 points over the last 14 days. 12 points for Schwarber, 16 points for Harper over their last 7 days, over a hit per day, over 2.5 total bases per game, almost scoring a run per game, RBI per game, and over 0.6 extra base hits per game. You know, extra base hits are massive for fantasy points. They've been hitting home runs. They've been scoring a ton of runs overall. They're up against Luke Weaver. I'm pretty sure it's his first start of the season. Park factor is okay. Now, there may be some weather concerns in Philly, so do keep that in mind. Make sure you check the weather today. I live, you know, in Toronto. It's been rainy. It's been very musty, so there could be a few delays, but hopefully it's not too bad overall. I know we're supposed to get some rain this afternoon, so we can dive into that at the end of the video. I'll just drop a little quick weather report if you want to check that out, but I forgot to pull it up right now, so I will get to it at the end of the video. But Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber are core plays for me. You see over 70% edge, projected for 13 and 14.5 points. Harper does have an 8.5 point projection on PrizePicks. So again, he's got to do a lot to get there, but I think he can. I think Phillies have been good enough for him to get there. And then Schwarber at 7.5, a slight discount. That's why he's got a slightly higher edge, even though his total isn't quite as high. But I do like both these plays a lot. And then getting into Carlos Correa, who's been just dynamite for the Minnesota Twins. You see 13 points over his last 14 days and 18 points over his last 7. He's come back in a major way. 1.5 hits per game, 3.25 total bases per game, a run per game, almost an RBI per game, and 0.75 extra base hits over the last 14 days. Jeffrey Springs, though, pretty good. He's not a bad pitcher, right? So he's been pitching particularly well. Now, how deep does he go against the Rays? We'll see, or against the Twins, we'll see. But if you want to take Correa, he's just been so good lately. I do think there's a world where he goes over again. Projected for almost 12 points, a lineup only 7, so not crazy high. He's not, a 7.5, 8, 8.5 guy. But I do think Correa's got a very good shot of going over against Springs. Now, the Rays bullpen is good. They don't allow a ton of runs, so you're not going to get him much from the bullpen. But Springs is a guy who can be beat a little bit, and I think with this slightly lower total, if you want to bank on the form of Correa with how damn good he's been, I don't think that's a terrible bet, and I think there's a good shot he can go over. And then there's Aaron Judge. I didn't want to put Judge in here because, again, it's 8.5 total. Is it home run or bust? Not entirely, but in some ways it is, right? In some way it is, and so for me, that's the biggest problem, is that we love Judge. We want to take him every day. He hit 2 home runs yesterday, but are we really banking on him again? I mean, kind of. I think it's worth it. Judge almost over 3 bases per game, over our 1.3 hits per game, RBI per game, run per game. It's just he's doing so much. You see the pitch factor here as well. So good. Him and Cronenworth are the only ones with positive pitch factors. I figured I'd point that out. I don't have one for Luke Weaver, but I have to imagine that with how good Harper is hitting right now, he would be in a pretty good spot from a pitch factor perspective, and same with Schwarber. So I think, those are the guys I'm kind of looking at here. Cronenworth, I really like. I do like Correa, pretty much a neutral pitch factor. I like Judge. I like Harper. I like Schwarber, and I think you could run the risk on Garcia if you wanted to. Now, for the unders, you have Jonathan Scope, who is up against Ross Stripling. For whatever reason, they have pretty high totals for these guys in Detroit. I have them all projected for pretty massive unders. They haven't been very good. You see over the last 7 days, 2.6, 2.5 for Pinder, 5 for Cabrera, which is, pretty good, and then Meadows at 3. Now, Detroit's sort of got alive in Toronto over the past few days. They've been putting up a couple runs, but not a ton, right? And Stripling has been very, very good since coming back. He's not going to go deep in the game, but the bullpen for the Jays has been, it's been fine. They could be a little bit better, especially in Detroit so far, but they're pretty good as well. And so that's why I'm not all in on these guys. Like, I think you could take an under here or there. If you want to sprinkle in a Meadows, he's got the lowest projection of anybody, mainly because he's been the worst so far. And then you talk about Scope, who's been pretty bad too. He's a bit better on the last 14. He's a little bit worse on the season, but over the last 7, he's been god awful. Then Chad Pinder, same story. Cal Quintrell, slightly worse pitcher, or slightly better pitcher, sorry. Pitch factor still, or pitch value still really, really good. Projected for 6 points. I don't know, man. Like Cleveland's good. They got some good pitchers over there. They got a lot of good pitchers. Their bullpen, though, it's okay. Pinder could go over. He's averaging 5.6 on the season, but over the last 7 days, 2.5 points per game is just, it's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it, man. So I think, you want to start with a Cronenworth and Harper, Schwarber, probably around those guys for the core. I think you could toss in some Judge, some Correa. I don't mind Garcia. Honestly, all these guys I like a little bit. If you want to stay away from Garcia because Kopech is so good, I'm totally with you on that. Same with Correa. You see Springs is pretty good, but I wouldn't be shocked if you went over either. I'd be targeting Weaver because Weaver is pretty good, but at the end of the day, he hasn't pitched, so he hasn't seen these guys. His form is kind of undetermined, and the Arizona bullpen isn't that great either, so there's lots of chances for the Phillies to put up a ton of runs like they have been doing recently, and so I like the overs for those guys. And of course, with Judge, he hit 2 home runs yesterday. Dude's super hot. I do like him a lot. And Cronenworth, I think, is worth the risk up against Marquez. Even you see here, he should hit his fastball and his slider pretty well, which I always like to see when players are going to get on top of multiple pitches, not just one pitch where it's fastball or bust. That's kind of a bit of a problem for me. You see Correa here will probably have struggles with Springs' slider, and his slider is very good. And then you see Scope here will have trouble with Ross Stripling's slider. But overall, you see the other guys, Cronenworth positive. You see pretty much neutral or positive for Judge, except of course for the fastball, where he is a freaking beast. And then you talk about Harper and Schwarber, both very, very good so far. So I like all these guys a lot. I think there's a lot of good opportunities. But yeah, I think the Cronenworth, Harper or Schwarber, maybe even both, and then maybe throwing in some Judge as part of the core is definitely a great play. And if you want to play some unders, here are the unders that I found for you. Basically just stack against Detroit. They haven't been scoring a ton of runs, but they've been doing just enough to win some ball games. So overall, I think that's where we're at, and I will get into the weather report right now. So as you can see here, this is basically what we're looking at right now. We have, first, we're starting Oakland and Cleveland. Low chance of delay. We're not targeting any of those guys. Arizona, Philly. Healthy downpours in the general area. Don't see anything that can immediately be troublesome, but there's a lower end chance for a delay or late start, which is okay. You know, if we want Harper, we want Schwarber, that's looking okay. And then you have in New York, rain before first pitch, then some clearing with more storm showers headed their way during the game, and hoping they can fit the entire game in there, but probably a bit too optimistic. Pretty good chance of a sort of delay here, and we will need to see radar pre-lock, so that really just impacts Aaron Judge, right? If you wanted to play Aaron Judge, there's some concerns there. Milwaukee and Washington, a little bit of storming in Washington, but it's looking like they're going to be okay to play the game with no issues. Then, you know, basically nothing other concerns for Minnesota or San Francisco. So it looks like for the plays we're looking at right now, we are in good shape overall. And so that's why, you know, I wanted to point that out to you guys, because I know that it's raining here, so there could be rain in other places as well. But Cronenworth looks good. Schwarber, Harper look pretty good. The only real fear here is Judge versus the Cubs. Does look like it could be a bit of an issue in New York, but outside of that, it looks like we're in good shape. And before I head out of here, if you want to play a Red Sox today against Robbie Ray, Rafael Devers looks to be the play. I believe he was like a 65% edge. He's got a very high total, but Robbie Ray has one of the worst pitch factors. He allows a ton of hits, ton of runs. Red Sox are getting a dub today. So, as always, if you tail, give them hail, and if we fail, do not bail. Make sure to drop me a like if you like this video and subscribe for future content. Thank you guys so much for rocking with me. I'll be here back tomorrow. I'm out. Peace.